Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Boardmasters with me, Chris Mullins, and today I will be giving my thoughts and feelings on the Quacks of Quedlinberg, following on from the gameplay that I did with Stacey last week, and I'll link to that down below. But yeah, this is a game we really enjoy playing. As Stacey said in the gameplay, it's pretty much one of her favourite games that I own so far, so that is a high praise from her indeed. As ever, the review will follow the 5 standard categories that I cover in all my reviews, so art style and theme, component quality, accessibility, replayability, and gameplay. Sorry about that, and gameplay. So, diving straight in, as you can see with the art style, I think it is absolutely gorgeous on there, and it's sort of carried on through. Obviously, there's not a lot in the game that necessarily has a huge amount of art. You have a little bit on the ingredient cards and the fortune teller cards, but it just has the same sort of colour palette and things, which I really like. And it really matches up nicely with the theme where, you know, it all looks a little bit eccentric and colourful, and the whole theme of the game is that you're a quack physician who is making up these random potions to try and cure ailments that don't really need potions to be fixed, and it all blends together quite nicely. Again, it's not going to blow you away, and the theme isn't the sort of theme where maybe if someone said, oh, let's make a game where we're making potions, depending on your interests, you may or may not be pulled in by that, but it's a good excuse for it blends well with the mechanics and everything like that. So although it's not a particularly strong theme on its own, it is thematic throughout the game, and it works well in conjunction with the gameplay. In terms of the components, it's good quality cardboard throughout, but obviously it's not great components, which is kind of understandable based on the price point, because the little ingredient tokens are little cardboard circles, which, from what I understand from people who have played the game far more times than we have, they are susceptible to wear, and so a lot of people tend to upgrade them either by buying off Etsy and things like that, and that's something I will look to do going forward if this hits the table as much as we hope. But other than that, and you know, that isn't something I've experienced yet, that's just something I've heard, so maybe unwarranted, and it would make the game far more expensive if you choose to go down that route. I mean, as it stands, I think the components are perfectly fine, but they just may not stand up if you're playing the game dozens and dozens of times. But you know, you've already got your money worth by that point anyway, so if you get to that and you want to spend a bit to deluxify the game and just make it last a bit longer, then I think the game's earned it by then. In terms of accessibility, I think it's absolutely fantastic on that score. As I mentioned, the price point is relatively low. You generally can get it in the £30 to £35 bracket, I believe. The gameplay is very low complexity, so it's very easy to learn initially. Alex has played this once or twice, and he had no problem learning the concept of the game. Obviously, there is a lot of strategic decisions in terms of which ingredients you're going to buy and when to push your luck and things. So although it's easy to learn, it can take a bit more to master the strategy elements. So although kids can play it, they're probably not going to win, because they're probably not going to be able to make the same level of strategic decisions that an adult probably could. But obviously that's going to depend on the kids and the adults. But other than that, in terms of the setup and teardown, it can take a long time, depending on how organised you are. If you make sure everything is in its own little bag and organised in the box, then it doesn't take too long at all. But yeah, that's just going to depend on you and how much effort you're willing to go in to make sure everything is organised and together. Like, for example, Stace makes sure in a bag we have all the ingredient cards and all the ingredients tokens for one particular type, so all the yellow cards and all the yellow tokens, and in another bag is all the purple cards and the purple tokens. So each ingredient has its own individual storage space, basically, and it makes it much quicker to set it up and put it away, so big points for that. In terms of replayability, This is one that's a similar point that I've come up with in a few of the recent reviews, and basically the replayability on the core game is going to just depend on how much you enjoy the core gameplay. Because for me, even though every game is different, it will always play out differently. There's a lot of variability in terms of the different effects on the ingredients, and the fortune teller cards randomize each round and things like that. So every game will be different, but it won't necessarily feel different because you're always doing the same thing, you're always making the same sort of choices. So if you enjoy the core game, you'll get plenty of replayability out of this one. And obviously I've sort of mentioned expansions already. There are a number of expansions for this, I believe. I believe there's the Herb Witches and the Alchemists are the two that I'm aware of. I haven't played either of them, I don't own either of them, so I don't know how much value they add to the gameplay. But they are out there and they are available. So if you want to add a few complications to the game, obviously at an extra cost, but that option is available to you. There is also a second game variant on the back of the main boards where you have an extra droplet that you're moving along test tubes. Whenever in the game you get to move your droplet around your cauldron, in the variant you have to choose between whether you move it in the cauldron or you move it along these test tubes at the bottom, which give you additional bonuses as you move along that track. So it just complicates it and gives it another layer of decisions. Again, we haven't tried that mode yet. We really should, because we played it enough to probably go for that now. But that's everything on the replayability, and with that we'll move on to the gameplay. So push your luck is the key mechanic of the game, which is a very fun mechanic just generally. It's always adds that extra layer of tension. Am I going to blow up my cauldron? I know I've got 10 to 15 ingredients left in my bag, but there's 2 in there that's going to blow me up. Do I risk it? Do I keep pushing? Or do I play it ultra safe and stop now? I mean, the way that, whilst that is really fun and builds tension, probably my one really negative game experience in the hobby so far did come playing Quacks with Stace, and I had the most horrendous run of bad luck. Basically, I lost 8 of the 9 rounds, and I don't think I got past 10 in any of those 8 rounds, because I seemed to draw 4 or 5 white tokens in the first 6 or 7 tokens every single round. So I was getting to 10 and Stace was getting to 25 and 30, and she absolutely demolished me basically. And there was just no let up. It was every round was me getting hammered on, and it was the one time playing a game where I did get a bit teasy and a bit fed up with it. And generally, as you've seen on the channel, I lose a lot of games and it doesn't really bother me in general, but that one, because it was so luck based, which is obviously the sort of flip side of the push your luck mechanism, my luck was so bad so consistently that it was just completely demoralizing. But that is obviously very rare that you're going to have that bad luck whilst the other person doesn't. Other than that, as I've said already, it is Stace's favourite game. I mean, Honeybuzz is probably pushing it, but I think this has been one of the games she always goes back to when I ask to play a game, which is a big win for me, because anything I can get to the table. I really, really like the strategic elements of the decision making, and like trying to figure out which ingredients complement each other and which ones will give you an advantage. And you know, like there are certain ones where if you have a lot of pumpkins in your cauldron, the orange ones, and then you draw a red one, the red one gets moved on further depending on how many pumpkins you have. So one of the very first games we played, Stace just doubled down buying pumpkins and red ones all the time, and she absolutely demolished me. Whereas I was going for the blue ones that allow you to draw an extra free token, in the hope that I was then getting free movement whilst mitigating the white tokens. And whilst that was successful, it wasn't quite as successful as Stace's strategy. So again, it's surprisingly deep, even though it's very accessible and easy to learn. And I really, really enjoy that about this game. So with all that being said, in terms of the final score, I think I'm going to give this one a 9. I think there is, apart from if you get a run of bad luck, there is pretty much nothing, there's very little we don't like about the game. I mean, the component quality could be better, and while the art style is nice and the theme is nice, it's not really as strong as some of the more narrative-based games like that I really love, like This War of Mine, or the theme running through Dinosaur Island, for example. So that's where it probably falls down a little bit. But it is just a really, really fun, fantastic game, and I highly recommend it. And that is my review of the Quacks of Quedlinberg. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll leave it there. So look after yourself, stay safe, and have a good one. Thank you. Bye-bye now.